20. Black blood. CW. Incest. Thanks again for being so understanding about this, I said, seeing Septima off for the night at the door of my room. Septima shook her head and nibbled her lower lip. I know how important this is to you. Are you sure you want to do it alone though? We both glanced at the unsuspecting cat-shaped, black elephant in the room and I said, yeah. I have a feeling that it's for the best that this first meeting is just us. Luna popped up between us, seemingly appearing out of thin air, pissed. What are we whispering about? Is it about Bella? It is, in fact, about Bella, I sighed. Luna, how long have you known my estranged mother was hiding out with us as a cat animagus? Luna froze like she'd been caught with her hand in the cookie jar again. Not even a whole month. And I was taking care of it. And her. I'm your head henchwoman, so dealing with intruders and junk is my job. I didn't want to bother you with it. Luna's hurried denial made me sigh again. It's okay, Luna. I'm not mad. I only started to suspect something last night. So long as you were careful and didn't immediately confront the potentially dangerous escaped criminal in hiding, I don't have a problem with how you chose to deal with this. Having relaxed slightly at my first words, Luna froze guiltily again at my last sentence. Yes, I was very responsible and sensible and totally didn't confront mother-in-law while I was naked. My voice filled with warning, Lu tilde not tilde. I felt like a chastising parent and Luna just whistled innocently. But she couldn't actually whistle, so it just ended up with her blowing air through pursed lips and looking anywhere but me. Eventually, I caved. Fine. Since it seems you know my mother more than I do you have any suggestions for how I should go about this? Luna smiled brightly and tapped her chin as she mimed, thinking for a moment. Let's see. Oh, I know. She then cleared her throat and announced loudly, putting on an obvious act for a certain someone, you'll be tilde all alone tilde tonight, Atlas. Won't you be lonely? Sounds like you could really use some tilde motherly love tilde to keep you company tonight. Surely, this is the perfect situation for someone to have you all to herself. Bella perked up from where she was napping, paying keen attention to Luna's act. Laying on a little thick, aren't we? I asked with a raised eyebrow. Luna shushed me. Shish. I'm just laying out the bait. She doesn't suspect a thing. That can't possibly be true, I deadpanned in response. Trust your henchwoman, Atlas dear, Septima patted my shoulder gently. We'll see. If it doesn't, I'll just go with the direct route. I guess we're leaving for the night, Luna announced. I sure hope no one takes advantage of core, delicious Atlas tilde. I rolled my eyes and tried to shoo them out faster. Septima chuckled. Come along, Luna. Let's take advantage of this night ourselves. We sorely need some time for just us girls. Yay, Coven Girls sleepover party, Luna cheered as she and Septima finally left me alone in my quarters. And then I found myself alone with my mother. My mother, who was currently hiding in cat form and didn't in time with mine once again. Her whole being hugged me as naturally as she breathed. Still, a sudden system notification cut through the afterglow. New Coven member initiated. Coven members for Septima Vector, Luna Lovegood, Gabrielle Delacour, Bellatrix Black. +10 to Black Blood Magic. Black Blood Magic 1 + 10 = 11 100ths. New perk unlocked. Bridget's Minor Ritual of Motherly Reclamation. +10 to Healing, +10 to Crafting, the ability to control your fertility. Healing 25 + 10 = 35 100ths, Crafting 3 + 10 = 13 100ths. Almost immediately, I used the perk to ensure my seed would not take hold inside Bella's womb. For the briefest of moments, I felt conflicted about that decision. But even whatever primal, blood-driven instincts that currently influenced me couldn't completely win out over common good sense. Oh, thank Merlin, I sighed as a weight I didn't even realize I'd been bearing was lifted from my shoulders. Or thank Brigid, I guess. In a daze, Bella hadn't even noticed my exclamation. I flexed myself inside her to get her attention. She jumped a bit and looked at me. I could have sworn I saw her eyes flash into violet hearts for an instant. Then she saw the reproach in my gaze and turned sheepish. Mother, did you invoke a ritual without my consent? I asked. Bella's expression froze and her panicked rambling returned. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It's tradition and I wanted you to have Bridget's blessing and her approval and I still shouldn't have done it and I'm sorry and... I sighed. This again. Well, for a brief moment, she'd been silent and resembled something that could vaguely be considered sanity. I guess I'd just have to repeat what had worked until it was permanent. My cock instantly throbbed back to full hardness at that idea. Oh, woe is me. Andromeda Tonks was a woman of routine and familiarity. Her youth had been more than wild and rebellious enough to last a lifetime. As such, she was rather easier to surprise than she thought she was. Often all it took to change her plans for the day drastically was for someone to drop by unannounced. Nymphadora, to what do I owe the pleasure? Moommmmmm Tonks groaned as daughters tended to do. I gave you that name and I'm allowed to use it, Andromeda firmly asserted. Now, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at work? That kind of is why I'm here, Tonks admitted sheepishly. Before she could explain further, a familiar, female voice called out through the house, Andromeda. Are you there? Amelia, is that you? Andromeda called back. She turned to her daughter without waiting for a response. Andromeda knew Amelia's voice when she heard it. Come in while I go see what she's flowing about. Let's hope I don't hear about how you've been fired shamefully and unceremoniously. Even with her back turned, Andromeda could hear the eye roll in her daughter's reply. Come on, Mom, I didn't get fired. Still, she made her way to the flow to find Amelia's head made of green flames. What's this about, Amelia? Nymphadora just arrived as well. May I come through? Amelia requested. I've been led to believe Tonks, the younger, has something important to share with us. Yes, by all means, come through, Andromeda agreed, stepping back to give her space. Amelia Bones stepped through the flow, coming to an almost effortless stop in the middle of the Tonks' living room. She nodded to her old friend Andromeda and her most promising young Auror, simply known as Tonks. Now, will you explain yourself, Nymphadora? Andromeda asked, only then noticing that her daughter wasn't alone. Is that a dog? I hope you realize that I won't let you keep it here. Tonks grinned sheepishly at the large shaggy black dog at her side. No, he's actually what I wanted to show you to. Padfoot. Why do I know that name? Andromeda muttered to herself. Before she could search her memories, the dog changed, standing upright and losing its fur to reveal an almost equally shaggy human. The man smirked unrepentantly at Amelia and Andromeda, spreading his arms wide, surprise. Amelia's wand was instantly out and she soon had the man restrained on his knees. I suppose the urgency and contents of your report were valid after all, Tonks. Oof, lovely to see you too, Amelia, Sirius joked. Shouldn't we ease back into the more risky play though? We haven't even established a safe word. Your mother's hairy wand, Amelia deadpanned. Sirius, smile grew hollow and with a shudder, he said, I see you remember our old one. I suppose that will be good enough. What is happening? Andromeda asked shakily, a hand over her heart to slow its rapid beating. Cousin Siri wants to turn himself in, Tonks explained. Says he can prove his innocence. That's where this comes in, Amelia added, holding up a bottle of Veritaserum. I consent to your questioning, Sirius agreed, surprisingly, Sirius, for once. Merlin knows you won't believe me any other way. Wait, Amelia, Andromeda stopped the head Auror from administering the Veritaserum. May I ask a few questions as well? Off the record, of course. Amelia slowly nodded. You may. Why though? He's utterly ruined my routine and all of my plans for the day. I think a little revenge is in order. Perhaps something to the order of what he and Bella did to me in Narcissa's undergarments during his 3rd year. I've never been able to get either of them to admit to it. Amelia nodded, a devious light shining in her eyes. That seems fair. Perhaps I should ask him a few questions off the record as well. I certainly recall having a few suspicions about his relationship with Sophia Greengrass while we were dating. Sirius paled dramatically. Meep. Narcissa Malfoy née Black sighed, once more thankful and resentful of her late husband's death. Oh, she didn't resent whoever was responsible for his murder, as the minister was calling it. In her mind, Lucius had it coming. It was his brain-dead idea to try and relive his glory days. He simply paid the price for that folly. No, what, or who, she resented was Lucius himself for leaving so much work on her plate. As she'd quickly figured out after his timely death, Lucius Malfoy was a terrible steward for House Malfoy. Debts, grudges, and promises of support, all poorly documented, were left for Narcissa to work through and around. He'd also somehow managed to squander much of the sizable Malfoy fortune left to him by his father. That fortune was just about the only reason Narcissa married Lucius in the first place. Surely, he was not a terrible husband. Cold and distant, but not abusive or too controlling on the whole. Narcissa had been left to her own devices for the most part. After Draco was born to shoulder the weight of heir, Narcissa hadn't slept in the same bed as her late husband. While she couldn't pursue carnal satisfaction outside of the bounds of their matrimony for fear of the hit to their reputations, Narcissa had managed. She found comfort in other things now. She certainly missed the ecstasy of a good shared, little death, but rising through the ranks of pure blood society was nearly as satisfying in some ways. There was no lost love between Narcissa and Lucius. But though her son was a mostly disappointing, Gryffindor-headed fool, she did love Draco something fierce. And with his father now removed from the picture, perhaps there was something to be done about saving him from that man's poor, nouveau rich influence. Those were thoughts for the Yule break in the summer though. For now, Narcissa was consumed with salvaging the ramshackle construction that Lucius called the House of Malfoy. Pledging himself to the former Dark Lord was just about the worst decision Lucius had ever made, even discounting how it eventually got him killed. The Dark Lord was the reason the Malfoy fortune was as barren as it was these days. He was also most likely the reason for Lucius' distance when it came to all things sexual if the stories told among the dark in backrooms were to be believed. The creative uses for the Cruciatus curse she'd heard there still made Narcissa shudder in disgust. And nowadays, other rumors filled those backrooms. Rumors that were much more terrifying and concerning than even the Dark Lord's sadistic sexuality. Rumors of his return. Of course, Lucius was aware of this. He might have even been instrumental in planning it. And he'd had a plan that would make him able to continue supporting and gain even more favor with the Dark Lord once he returned. He would simply claim the fortune and lordship of House Black. As if it would ever be that simple, Narcissa scoffed. For one, Sirius was still alive. He may have been disgraced, but when did the Blacks ever care about the opinion of the Ministry? As far as black magic was concerned, Sirius was still Lord Black. Lucius shrugged this fact off, taken by the idea that Draco was Sirius' heir. Narcissa might have assumed that was true as well, if she hadn't met that enigma of a professor at the Quidditch World Cup. Atlas White, he had Bella's eyes and Sirius' smirk. How scandalous, and yet, also so characteristic of both of them, Narcissa thought. Lucius died before he could even consider changing his plans, leaving all of his notes for Narcissa to find afterward. Also, leaving her with a mess of a house. One that Lucius assumed he could fix if he only had the Dark Lord at his back literally and the Black Fortune at his fingers. He couldn't fix a flipped-over turtle. Narcissa stamped and sealed another envelope, marking it to be sent whenever her owl returned. She was supposed to be in mourning. That was what she'd told the prophet. Instead, her days had been consumed with even more politicking than usual and letters upon letters of negotiations and refusals. Lucius had apparently rallied the entire dark faction around him, banking on his assumption that the Black Lordship would soon be under his control. As a result, the dark houses assumed Narcissa would be continuing his good work. This was the 17th attempt at getting her to play ball and the 4th from Lord Not Alone. Sighing yet again, Narcissa took out another sheet of parchment and resumed this endless grind. Dear Lord Greengrass. Unfortunately, I am not able to set any dates in stone regarding the betrothal contract between House Greengrass and House Black. Though I am acting as regent for House Black at the moment, I do not have the power or authority to push things ahead, as it were. As such, I ask for your patience. I am sure this situation will resolve itself in the near future. And I actually quite like the idea of the Blacks being mainly responsible for pure blood inbreeding. Just hear me out. They're an old family, one of the oldest in most canon fanons. They're obviously decently fertile because even after generations of inbreeding, there were, 5 kids in Sirius' generation from 2 sets of parents. They must have married into basically every other pure blood family at some point. So if, say, the original Black Coven did a bit of ancient magic that promoted incest and, keeping the line pure, it would naturally propagate into the rest of the wizarding world. Also, on a slightly related note, there's a non-zero chance that magic is something to fix the inbreeding problem. If it didn't, even pure bloods would have realized something was wrong with incest inbreeding at this point. Since they're still marrying fucking their cousins in this story at the very least, I feel like it's safe to assume there's more to the story than just inbreeding being as bad for wizards as it is for muggles.